From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Brian Biggs. Brian attended the Parsons School of Design and has been an art director and graphic designer, an animator for interactivity and multimedia projects, a teacher, a writer, and an illustrator. He's written and drawn comics and graphic novels and illustrated many children's books, including the wonderful Brownie and Pearl and Roscoe Riley Rules series. He also wrote and illustrated the Everything Goes series. His pictures are bright and colorful and filled with humor. He has most recently illustrated Frank Einstein and the Antimatter Motor and The Dog Days of School, the story of a boy who wishes he could stay home from school like his dog Norman. I read Dog Days last weekend to my 5-year-old twin grandsons, who went into gales of laughter at the pictures of Charlie's adventures as a dog, particularly the one where he drinks out of the toilet. Please join me in welcoming Brian Biggs.
I think it's on. Hey, you can hear me. Hey, thanks for coming, everybody. When I visit schools and book festivals and that sort of thing, I kind of like to pretend I'm a stand-up comedian, but at some point people tell me, you're not. We'd rather you just draw pictures than talk too much. But I do want to say thanks, everybody, for coming out and being here for this. Yes, my name is Brian Biggs. I'm from Philadelphia. And I'm really sorry about what the Eagles are going to do to the Redskins this year. No tomatoes. I'm the illustrator, I guess since this is the National Book Festival, and I'm the illustrator speaking right now, that makes me currently the National Illustrator. So this is the national book, Frank Einstein and the Antimatter Motor, that I just recently illustrated. It's a 6-book series, and Jon Scieszka wrote it. Who's one of my all-time favorite authors anyway. When my kids are teenagers now, but when they were younger, I used to read Jon's book to them, various books, thinking this is the stuff I want to do one day. And it's kind of a big deal to me that I got to hang out with Jon and come up with these characters and write these things. What I'm going to mainly do today is kind of a little drawing presentation. It's a real simple thing. It's mostly for these dudes up here in the very front. If you are anywhere between, say, 3 and about 74 and want to be up here in the front where you can be a little closer and have a little more fun with it, you're welcome to come up and sit down. I guess that's okay, right? I hope nobody tells me otherwise. And we're just going to talk about drawing and how I make pictures and that sort of thing. And then the last 10 minutes or so, I can answer questions, make up tall tales, tell you about my vacation in Fenwick Island last week if you want. So we'll, if there's anything you've ever wanted to ask a children's book author or illustrator, I can try to make it up and tell you what I think to be the truth. So how does that work? You guys okay down there? Can you guys see this whiteboard okay? Everybody can see it okay? So they gave me some, I feel like Britney Spears up here, although with this microphone, but I don't look like Britney Spears. So they gave me some extra fat Sharpies, so hopefully you guys can see all of this okay. The way I like to start this, well, yeah, the way I like to start this is just drawing this. And what we do, wow, that's perfect. You don't have to applaud. What we do is, I know, I'm a professional. So does anybody out here in front or anywhere know what this is that I just drew here? I see, you guys are awesome. I saw hands go up. This guy, the surfer guy. He said it's a circle. Anybody else? How about over here in the pink tights? Yeah, you. It's now we're onto something here. Not to knock you, because you're kind of partly right, but she said it's a face. So does anybody know what else this could be right here? Yes, sir. It's a robot body. This is, I'm going to hire you. My personal assistant right there. All right, so you guys are on to, when I visit schools, see, here's the thing I've noticed. Between about Memorial Day and Labor Day, kids are smarter, they're more imaginative, They find things that are interesting to them. They're thinking about things in different ways. As soon as school starts next Tuesday, suddenly everything shuts down for 9 months. They're kind of sitting at a desk. And if you drew this on the board, everybody out here would just go, "It's a shape, man." So what we have here is a face and or a robot body that in a former life was a circle. So with that in mind, so here's, normally what happens when I visit schools, somebody will look at this. And by the way, I give this presentation to college art classes as well as 4-year-olds, and it's always exactly the same. So typically, I kind of have to draw another of one of these mysterious shapes in the middle, and at this point, usually people start to kind of see what's going on here. It's 3 circles that are forming now what she pointed out over here, which is going to be a face. And it's kind of amazing to me that, when you look at the Frank Einstein book or Everything Goes, that I get very complicated and very detailed in my drawings. But I always start off with these very simple kind of, squares, triangles, shapes, that sort of thing. So it's kind of fun just to add how many circles can we get here, and maybe a half circle there, and then another half circle there. And that's a pretty basic face. It's probably sort of happy. It just came back from vacation, like me, and it got here without traffic all the way across the bridge to Annapolis. So we're going to flip this over. I'm not going to autograph that. So we start off again where we're going to get a little more complicated. See, the fact that that went so quickly, usually it takes us the entire 30 minutes just to get to where we just got. So we're going to have to wing it now. But I like what he said about the robot body. When recently I posted, I have a website, it's mrbiggs.com, that's MRBIGGS.com. And I just posted a recent blog post about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago with the cover of Frank Einstein and how the characters and the cover came to be. When you look at a cover like this, you might walk through the bookstore, be browsing your favorite independent bookseller's website, and see the covers of children's books and think, I could do that. And the thing is, you probably could. But what's fascinating about this thing is the process it takes to get there and the patience you have to. We had 30 or 40 different covers we did, different shapes of the robots, different ways the characters look. And I've been working with these characters now for about a year, but it's funny to see, you can see it on my blog post, how the characters looked 8 or 9 months ago, and they looked very different than they ended up looking in the books. So one of the ones that we did, when Jon was writing the books, we had kind of a smart robot and kind of a more of a fun-loving, goofy robot. And as soon as he told me that, I thought of a movie that most of us have probably seen, it's Star Wars, where you have the tall C-3PO and the kind of the goofy, smaller R2. And I suggested to Jon that maybe we reverse it, where the taller robot is kind of the goofy, dancing and happy robot, I suppose, and then the real stoic, esoteric robot is the smaller robot. So that's the way we ended up doing it. But we did actually have a robot made out of circles like this. And when you get to the legs of a robot, it's one of those things, kind of like how does the armature, the knees, do they have to have knees? Are they made out of PVC pipes? Are they made out of, the hoses that connect your dryer to the walls? And because these robots were accidentally built in a junkyard, it was a lot of fun to kind of think of different parts that might make up these robots. So one of the things we had literally was the hoses that attached the dryer to the walls. And, you just kind of go to Lowe's and check that out. We had wheels at the bottom for a while. So I'm not necessarily in love with circles, and nor do I get paid by the Circle Foundation to keep drawing them. But that's what ends up a lot. And when you have these simple robots, this is never going to end, you guys. How many circles can we put in one guy? And we had a colander for a hat, so I could just, we'll call it black here and erase what's there. A little antenna with a bulb at the top. More circles, more circles. And then we get into big, long hoses for this is starting to look a little bit like Clink, which is one of our characters in the book. Has anybody read the book yet? It just came out. Yes, sir. All right. It came out about 2 weeks ago. Oh, and I kind of have to brag a little bit. We found out Wednesday night it's on the New York Times bestseller list next week as well. So I was Wednesday night in a beach house in Fenwick Island, and the phone rings, and it's my editor's phone number. And I was like, he knows I'm on vacation. I better answer it. And so they're having a conference call at Abrams, and he's like, hey, we have some good news. So we had a nice Wednesday evening celebration at the beach house in Fenwick Island. But I appreciate that applaud. My wife said, it's about time. I said, come on. All right, so this is getting close to Clink. Now, the thing with Clink, he's the guy on the cover. I don't know if you guys can see this. If you put your binoculars, did everybody get binoculars when they came in? To your eyes, you'll see. He is made out of a giant kitchen trash can. So we're going to start off with, let's get rid of this black color, because it's one of the more boring. We're going to make him blue. And the kitchen trash can that we used to have, actually my father-in-law's house, you push the bottom and the top opens up. And so I'm thinking about the junk that's in a junkyard and what kind of things that might be interesting to make a robot out of. And it can't be too detailed, but we have this shape right here is what I started with. And somebody reviewed the book saying basically what kitchen, no, actually this was in a meeting. I think it was an editor said what kitchen trash cans are 6 feet tall because it's such a huge robot compared to the little kid. But in the end, you just kind of have to say children's books. Yeah. There's no dragons out there either, by the way. So we have another colander here. And when you think about it, colanders make really good robot hats. Is anybody like me where when you were a kid, you kind of was, when you were maybe an adolescent and your parents made you start doing dishes for the first time, all you're doing is washing things thinking, this looks like a Star Destroyer, you wash it and put it aside, and you get another thing, and this looks like it's used to herd magical creature. Nobody? All right. I know one guy out there, I saw him a while ago, that thinks that way. Everything has always been something else to me, and somehow I turned it into this. So we have the lid of the robot here, and one of the tricks of my trade is when you don't know what else to do, you put a screw on it. So put a big flat head. People say, there's a lot of screws that make up, like on Everything Goes, the airplanes and the blimps all have these big bolts and screws holding them. And of course, if you see the Goodyear blunt, there's no bolts holding this thing together. But I kind of like to have that look to everything. It's sort of this mechanical look. So there's little rivets and dots and things. Basically, I just like using the ink. And so in the middle, Jon Scieszka wrote this character where he's got a Casio keyboard. And he plays these various Casio rhythms, the boom, 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 boom. Now the best part is Jon asked me he had to do the narration for the audiobook of Frank Einstein. And Jon's very funny. Just having a conversation with him, I'm kind of crying with laughter. And he asked me to read the parts of the robots. So I went to a recording studio in New York and I read all the robot parts. And in fact, my publicist asked me today, she says, can you do the robot voices? Well, the thing is I run all the voices then through my computer with various software that makes them sound more metallic and more robotic. If you get a chance to find online, I think it's on YouTube, or get the actual audio books, Jon, the writer of the book, is the narrator, and then all the robots are voiced by me. So it was a lot of fun to go and kind of get my actual Casio keyboards and record all the rhythms and the sounds and that kind of thing as well. So then we have a big circle in the middle. And I figured that one thing that this particular rotund robot would not want to have is a bathroom scale in the middle of his body, but he does. And he has like a beat timer, a meat thermometer like you use when you're barbecuing. So we have all these little dials. I love drawing little dials, and we started thinking, what kind of little dials would this robot have? How many people have had to actually design robots? Gene. Another children's book illustrator up here going, me. So we have meat thermometers, we have bicycle gauges, for airing up your tires. What other kinds of things? Is like if you go outside and look where your plumbing comes out of your house or your gas fittings, there are those gauges. Basically, if you walk into your local hardware store and ask for gauges, you'd be amazed how many weird little things there are to measure other things. So when I'm drawing these things, I'm always thinking like of a hardware store, and luckily I have one near my studio, so I just go over there and check it out. So then we're getting into the legs. Very thin legs, works really well for the rotund body. I hope you guys are formulating questions up here. Like, how can you possibly do this for a living, mister? The kids down there are like, whatever. And then we have, this is the mysterious shoulder balls. We don't know what they are. Jon's never had to describe them. The best part was, as he was writing the book, I was drawing the pictures, and so I would send him sketches, and he would rewrite sections based on the way I was drawing them. So there's a good chunk of the book that's done like that. So here's those plumbing, or those HVAC fittings. Now the worst thing that he did to me, in every single one of the 6 books, this is Clink, and Clink is going to get blown up in some way at the end of each of the books. In the first book, he attacks the giant nuclear squirt gun that the bad guy has built, and I kid you not. It's a giant pink nuclear squirt gun, and he explodes. And so he rebuilds himself. I'm not giving away any spoilers or anything. This isn't like Game of Thrones. He comes walking back in, and he's got this giant monkey wrench where one of his parts of his arm used to be. And I'm thinking, I have to draw a monkey wrench now for 5 books? And I literally had to go, what is a, you have to Google a monkey, who could draw a monkey wrench? It's got that weird dial and the thing that moves, and it's like a big plumbing wrench. So I'm kind of bummed because he gave me, so I think now he's challenged to make the robots replace parts of themselves into things that I don't want to have to draw. It's a love-hate relationship. So this is Clink, more or less. And I'm not at my comfortable studio listening to my favorite music, so it's probably the second worst Clink I've ever drawn. But I think it's okay. And I'm going to call it this down here. Now I'm going to draw a quick Clink, who is his cohort here. And he's the little guy in the front. And he's normally yellow. Now, you guys know what a shop vac looks like, right? Do you guys know what a shop vac looks like? No? Can anybody draw a shop vac? Any of you guys? You ever seen a shop vac? Now, your dads are out there going, come on, man. You guys have seen shop vacs before. What they are, these usually, mine's yellow, and it's shaped kind of like this. And it has a whole bunch of junk on top. And what it is stuff that your parents are going to make you hold to clean up their messes in their garage and the backyard and the patio. So that's what you guys will learn. My kid is out there going, I know what the shop vac is. So what we have here is a big glass dome on this shop vac. Now that's one of the cool things is the shop vacs don't normally have big glass domes, and they don't normally have GoPro cameras in them either. So the thing is with GoPros, they're really boring little squares with tiny little lenses. So even he didn't use the brand name GoPro. He talks about it just being a camera. So we made it kind of a cool looking camera like this with kind of a tripod thing. And does anybody know what this would be for? Can you guys guess what would the guy in the blue there? It'd be like an eye, right? So this robot, he has a GPS system on him. He has an eye, and he's always looking. And again, these guys built themselves, so they build them better than Frank, the main character, could have. So he's always kind of like scanning around and looking around. But he's got this GPS device. And originally the idea was we thought we would have him kind of have a Siri voice, where she's telling you to turn left on Route 13 and that sort of thing. And then we have one arm that's kind of got a hinge, and this arm has lots of different attachments on it. So if we need this character to fix a refrigerator or glue something together or hammer or something, we can always give him sort of a quick tool to do whatever he needs to do. And then we gave him skateboard wheels here. And it's fun because they're all different colors. And you know, have you ever gone to a skateboard shop? Skateboard wheels are sort of fascinating. So I've become a curious person about things to build robots with. And so then we just have a lot of nameless dials and switches, kind of the same thing with Clink there. And then the last thing that he's got is a vacuum hose. So if you have a shop vac, your robot has to have a vacuum hose. And he ends up having to clean up after Clink all the time. So we have this big, and it's a little harder to draw. Okay? I'm doing this very quickly because we've got to get to questions and answers. I know you guys are desperate to find out what's going on in my world. So this looks a little bit more like Clink. These are the two main robots, and what happens is Frank accidentally builds them, and they become his partners in crime, not in crime, in trying to solve mysteries and things in the book that Jon wrote. We have about 8 minutes left, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. This guy raised his hand before I even finished that sentence, so say it loudly, and then I'll repeat your question so everybody can hear it. Yes, sir? Yeah. I'm not the writer. He asks me, when I was talking about the big giant pink nuclear squirt gun, he said, how does it work? In the story, the character builds an antimatter motor, and he's making it using protons and antiprotons. So the whole series, by the way, is based on science. So the 6 books, the first one is matter, the second one is energy, then we have life sciences and earth sciences and science, solar system. So basically, this is for the parents. Your kids are being entertained but learning at the same time. For you guys, don't listen to anything I just said. It's a hilarious series of books that Jon wrote. How does it actually work? I don't have any idea. It's got an antimatter motor in it, and it creates particle beams that melt things. So the robot jumps on it and squeezes it, and it explodes. So another question. It's hard for me to see past. Oh, how about? Oh, you got microphones. Sorry, dude. Yes.
It's okay. Do you have any advice for future illustrators?
The best advice I would have is you just keep drawing. I used to teach at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and the best thing I always told my students was, if you just keep drawing and you're doing good work, like trying to get into children's books, that kind of thing. One of the things that is a big secret in the publishing world is that publishers are actually looking for new talent all the time. If you read those books about like getting into the business, they seem to kind of make you feel like that no one actually wants to see new illustrators and new writers, because you have to have an agent, and then the agents say you have to have already been published, and it's this kind of circle where really none of that really matters. If you want to do the work, you keep doing the work, and you make sure you find people that you can show it to, whether it be at book festivals, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators events, SCBWI, local writers groups, or even better, the internet. Have a website and just keep sending stuff out to people, because if the work's good, you're going to find it. It's out. There's digital. Whatever, they're always going to be, these guys are always going to want to have new stories to read. And if we're making them, right? So, sure.
Hi. It's kind of rare to be illustrating alongside the writer while he's writing the book. So did you find yourself suggesting things through your illustrations that then became part of the text?
Very, very good question. This is the first time, I've illustrated now 41 books, I guess. And this is the first time where as you put it, I'm illustrating the book as the writer is writing the book. Usually the manuscript or the book is written sometimes even years in advance, and it's just been sitting on an editor's desk waiting for the right illustrator to come along. In this particular case, yeah, that's actually exactly what happened. Jon Scieszka had this idea, and really what he had was a title, Frank Einstein. He didn't really know what it was going to be. We just thought it was a really funny thing. And so I went up to Brooklyn, and we sat in a pub and started just throwing out emails at each other and talking about what this might be. And he did, of course, all the writing. But as I mentioned earlier, as I was sketching the robots, I would send drawings to him, and things would change based on that. So as you know, I'm reading science books. We got a lot of those old textbooks, like A World of Biology. And so we would start reading them thinking, oh my gosh, baby giraffes are hilarious. How can we have them in the book? And one time he mentioned static electricity. And one of the drawings I really wanted to do was this first robot, Clank, where he's rubbed balloons. You know how when you do that, you rub balloons on your kids? on your parents, and you stick them on yourself, and you can walk around with balloons. So I wanted to draw this robot with balloons stuck all over himself. I just thought that would be really funny. So we looked into static electricity and how in the story might we use that. And it should be in book 2. I haven't seen the final edit, so yeah, cross your fingers. But yeah, this was a really unusual system and the way to work. One of the weirdest things is it was with Jon Scieszka, and it's Jon Scieszka. So it's kind of like, Jon Scieszka's phone number shows up on my iPhone. I'm like, ha ha, we're going to discuss robots. So it's kind of a fun thing, but yeah, this was a first for me, and it is very rare, and it did change the whole process. One of the worst things is that, don't tell anybody, but he was kind of late with the manuscript, so I had to kind of wait around for him to get done before I could start drawing the pictures. It was kind of funny. So another one.
Is there anything you like to draw the most?
Anything I like to draw the most? Definitely not robots. That's over with. No more cars and trucks and airplanes. No, actually, that's the opposite. If you sat me down and said, you can do whatever you want for a year, and you shut the door, in a year you would probably find a lot of drawings of spaceships, robots, cars and trucks and airplanes, monkeys. I like to draw monkeys. It's usually things that I can just give a lot of personality to, and robots are like that. You can have like I just drew a trash can with a head, and it's a lot of fun. So, is there more over here? It's hard for me to see you guys. Yes?
Why did you guys decide to make a book about robots?
How did we decide for it to be a book about robots?
Yes.
Because robots are awesome. We thought about robots or math teachers. No, I think if you're writing a book about science and the main character is a little dude, a 9-year-old guy, probably building robots is one of the coolest things that you could think of, next to building spaceships. The problem with building spaceships is in chapter 1, he's in space, and the book is over. So robots, you can kind of have a continuing set of adventures. It's no fun. So you have a question too? And then I guess she's going to give me the 2-minute sign. Yes?
Are you going to make more books with more characters? Or?
I wish I could retire today, but that's not going to happen. Yes, absolutely. We have 5 more of these Frank Einstein books to go. So Frank Einstein's book 1 through 6 will be out over the next few years. And then I've got 5 other books I'm working on right now for different writers, and I am pitching a series of 10 books next week. That's going to be mainly for 4-, 5-, 6-year-olds that I'm writing. So I've got work lined up, as I'm happy to say, through my kids' college education, and then we'll negotiate after that. So we'll see how that goes. Is that all the questions? If there's one person he doesn't have a microphone, is that okay with you guys? Here, run to the back and get in front of the microphone. She's calling you. Hurry, we got like 1 minute. Now I'm really curious what this guy has to ask.
So, I've read your books and they're pretty funny.
Meet me afterwards, I'll give you your $5 bill. That's enough. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.